Hello and welcome back to Let's Talk Real Estate. My name is Kristen Jock with Compass, and on this week's episode I'm discussing, are my property views protected? So I think that one of the first things you want to look at when evaluating whether or not you might lose your view in the future is to understand whether your property has lot line windows. And what is a lot line? So a lot line is the imaginary boundary between your property and an adjacent property. Lot line windows typically are found on the sides of buildings and rarely ever on the front and the back. So lot line windows really affect you as an apartment dweller when your neighbor builds up to the level of your apartment or higher. You would then, at that point, be required to close up the window at your own cost and trouble, and then lose your view as well as the natural light that it was providing. When purchasing an apartment with lot line windows, it means that the view and natural light that it provides, in theory, are temporary. That temporary time period might be 6 months or 60 years, but nonetheless, it's not protected or guaranteed. Furthermore, in New York City, a bedroom must have a true window, in other words, not a lot line window, and ventilation to be considered a legal bedroom. If the only window is a lot line window, then legally that room is not a bedroom and never was. So this is important if you thought that you owned a one bedroom and it turns out that the only window within that bedroom is a lot line window, and therefore it's technically a studio and not a one bedroom. And you could own it for a period of time, not being any the wiser, but then your neighbor could one day build up and close up that window and you have to close it up, and now it's more than evident that it's not a window, it's not a true bedroom, and you've now reduced the value of your unit, being that it's no longer a one bedroom, it's actually a studio. In new development buildings, lot line windows are usually indicated on the offering plan. In older buildings, that information might not be available. And if there are lot line windows in a unit, that information absolutely must be disclosed because it materially affects the value of the unit. And I'm sure that a listing agent would do his or her best to minimize the effects of a window no longer being available and disclosing that to someone who's interested in purchasing it. But the truth is that they don't always know, and it may be something that comes up down the line. And there's really just no guarantee that whatever has been decided, legislated, or regulated won't change in the future. And I'll give you a case in point of the Brooklyn Heights Promenade, which is part of the Brooklyn Heights Historic District. And there are properties, very expensive properties, that enjoy wonderful views of the water and the New York City skyline. And for very good reason, would believe that those views are protected and would be protected in perpetuity. However, the Brooklyn Heights Promenade is connected in a cantilever section with the Brooklyn-Queens Expressway, which is currently falling into disrepair and needs to be reconstructed. And one of the proposals is to move the highway to run in the section of where the Brooklyn Heights Promenade is, and thereby obstructing the views that the property owners have been enjoying and also diminishing the desirability of that area. So in addition to whether your property has lot line windows, something else to take into consideration is whether there's unused FAR or air rights, as it's called, within the direct line of your view. So some questions that you could ask yourself would be, are there empty lots within the line of sight of my view? Are there proposed projects within the line of sight of my view? And did the developer of your building potentially buy the air rights from the adjacent buildings, thereby partially protecting your view? However, even considering all of that, zoning can change. So zoning changes can affect the extent to which a lot can be built out. And if the zoning in your area has changed and it's been upzoned, that could potentially lead to obstructions of your view from development in the area. Something else to consider when thinking about development is whether or not your property falls in a historic district, like I was mentioning in the case of the Brooklyn Heights Historic District. So although that's a very rare example of where something protected may not be as protected as we thought, generally speaking, historic districts, which Brooklyn has 33 of, and the process of landmarking specific buildings tends to protect the character of neighborhoods and discourage overdevelopment while encouraging more conscious development of an area. So you might want to consider or find out whether your property falls in a historic district and may therefore be a little bit more protected than a non-historic district from overdevelopment and potentially losing your view one day. So as you can see, it's mainly gray area when trying to understand how protected is your view, considering that pretty much all things are subject to change. However, analyzing some of these criteria will help you to best critique how likely you are to one day, if at all, lose the view that you so enjoy in your property. So as always, I hope that this information was useful. Feel free to leave comments or questions below. Have a lovely day and see you next week.